I'm leading together with Lynn as well, we're leading the textile package for the Trace for Value project. And if you go to the next slide, please. So just to give you a little bit of a background about Trustrace before I jump into the project, so you understand of why we're leading this and why it makes sense for us to be involved and leading this project. So Trustrace, we're a supply chain transparency and product traceability SaaS platform, so a digital platform for brands to do traceability. Our brands are global fashion and retail brands, and we have a head office in Stockholm, an office in India, France, and the US. We have grown quite significantly in the last couple of years, so now we're over 100 people strong, and we have quite solid experience in delivering very large-scale traceability programs for some of the biggest brands in the world. So next slide, please. Thank you. What you will see here is actually a simplified view of our platform. So what we've seen is that if brands want to become more transparent and really have traceability, a traceability system, a digital system is really unavoidable for them to achieve that control of their value chain. So here you will see a jacket and all the different components, and you would have a lot more detail behind that. I won't go into that because that's not the point of this presentation, but it's more to give you a background. Okay, this is what we do on our day-to-day basis anyway. So if you go to the next slide, please. So what we've also seen, and Sophie touched on it as well, is really the regulations that are pushing the brands not only to want to be more transparent, but to have to be more transparent. And under the European Green Deal and the Sustainable Textile Strategy especially, there's been so many new regulations coming up that brands have to comply with it, and they really have to start changing. So on the next slide, please. So what we're doing now under Trace for Value is also to continue that and really to focus on the compliance innovation. So the digital product passport, what Sophie was also just explaining, is what we're focusing on the textile side. The textiles are one of the main industries that have been identified as the most polluting areas. So that's why textiles is being a big focus. And the digital product passport, what it will do is really to help the sustainability through this transparency. And through this transparency, again, you have improved durability. You will be able to increase the recyclability and ultimately reduce the waste. So if we're going into the different areas for sustainable production, for example, that's really, you need to understand your production so that you can improve it, and you need to have that visibility, that understanding. You will be able to increase or have a better circular economy, because if you're looking at, for example, a recycler, if they straight away know what a product is made of and how they can recycle it, that will increase the speed of recycling and will make it simpler, will make it easier. Again, on the authorities, they will have a much better and simpler way to see that you're compliant from a due diligence perspective, for example. And then on the consumers, to help them making the sustainable choices that they maybe want to do, but don't have the information to be able to make those choices at this point in time, and to compare products, but also to have information about what should I do with this product when it breaks? How do I repair it? How do I, where do I go? Where can I recycle it? And so on. And then, of course, with all that, if you have this digital product passport, there will be a lot of new business opportunities, from more resale, more recycling, more repair. There's a lot more opportunities on that side as well. So this is just, and I don't think we need to dwell on this because Sophie also explained a little bit, but what it is ultimately, for those who don't really know what the digital product passport is, it's a digital device, or it's a QR code in this case, attached to a garment that can be accessed by all different stakeholders that somehow want to receive information of a product. And I won't dwell on it. So these are the project partners that are involved in this project. It's not as many as Keep, but we have, we're doing real life projects, pilots with products out in the market from their current collection from Marimekko and Kappahl. So it's about the system behind it that needs to be robust. Those garments will be out there in years to come as well. So it needs to be accessed as well later on from all the different stakeholders I just showed you. So we have those brands. I won't go through all of them, but we have the standard bodies and policy and all different parties involved in this project. So just to give you a bit more understanding of what is it we'll do and how will we do it. So what we'll do is we'll have a digital ID, similar of what you heard already. That ID will be linked through a QR code to the product data, with the product data to a product. We'll then pilot that out in the market, and then there will be different interfaces regarding if it's a brand, a consumer, or authority of which kind of data they can access of this product. That sounds very simple. It's not as simple. The biggest part really is the data. We've been working on that a lot lately, and it's to understand what are the different requirements that are needed for the brands, from the policies, from the consumer. And the reason why it's maybe even more complex than it should be is just because the ESPR, which is the Eco-Design for Sustainable Product Regulation, which is the regulation under which the digital product passport fits in, most likely it's only going to be mandatory from 2025, 2026. So not all the requirements in terms of data and data sharing, etc., are available yet. So we need to take a lot of assumptions. We need to work with the policy people. We need to work together with the standard bodies, etc., to make a lot of assumptions, because this project will be launched or it will be finalized in Q3 2024. So before all the requirements are clear. Then it's also all about which standards, which protocols. There's lots of different standards from a GTIN standard and so on that can be used to really enable this interoperability, which is very, very important in order to have all the different stakeholders being able to access the information. And then it's the architecture behind it. How do you collect it? How do you link it? Is it decentralized? Is it not? How do you have a resolver or not? All that part behind it, and then the different interfaces. Sorry, I know I'm keeping quickly. It's just I won't go into it, but I'm saying it's complex. It's very complex about the data, what needs to be collected, what are the different standards, who needs the data, how can you serialize the data so that it makes sense. So it's basically a language that you're creating, and again that will ultimately be somewhere written down and set in stone, and everyone will follow that. But because it doesn't exist yet, we have to do it in parallel with some of the other projects. And keeping in mind it's a pilot, what we're doing is we're building the infrastructure so flexible that we're able to adopt, modify, or change anything that will be coming from the Commission at a later stage. Yeah, and I think this is the last, so it's just the timing. I mentioned this already. So it's basically that the regulation will only be out 2025, 2026. It's an assumption. This pilot will be done in Q3 2024. So we're taking a lot of assumptions, but it's really to prove what can be done and what to show, okay, what is possible right now with the technology that exists right now, with the systems, keeping in mind that a lot of brands and textile industry is not very digitalized yet. So what can we do that is really practical and workable and not just theoretical? That's it. Thank you. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to me directly or to Malin or whoever.